Welcome to Echoes Down the Road, a podcast presented by the band West of House. My name is Tommy, and thanks for joining us for episode 10 of season 2. In this episode, Erick, Lance, and Bobby will be breaking down the song The First Time from our album Drown the Wind. You'll hear Erick spill the beans on the meaning of the song. Bobby will share some cool studio tricks he used to make the song extra special. And Lance, well, Lance will be Lance, and he will be good for some laughs. So sit back and relax, and thanks for joining us.
Good morning, afternoon, evening, Westies, and welcome back to Echoes Down the Road. You are in for a freaking treat today. That's all I have to say. We have been looking forward to this episode for a while, but getting the housekeeping out of the way, as always, my name is Erick.
And my name is Lance.
And my name is Bobby.
And collectively, we are 2/5 of West of House, with Bobby as the sixth, goblin amongst our myths and the band. You just might as well just be in the band at this point. We can fire Tommy and just bring you in.
I like stunt guitarist and mix wizard.
Mix wizard. You were a ninja there for a while.
I was a ninja.
I got called, I've been called wizard and ninja. There's an image out there that may or may not be me wearing one of those inflatable T-Rex costumes.
Love it.
Mixing. That might be me. I don't know. I could have been drunk and I don't remember.
Those are never bad things to be called. Wizard and ninja, those are compliments where I come from.
Oh, I'll absolutely take them as compliments.
You've been called worse, I'm sure.
Today, yeah.
And we're just getting warmed up. And Tommy, he's not here. Why are we even pretending at this point?
No surprise.
Nope, he's not showing up. He's doing whatever Tommies do at this time of the season, spreading their seed and harvesting the fields.
Tasty.
The imagery is not pleasant.
Sometimes you don't even need a word, Lance, just a sound.
Yes.
to get the point across. Well, today we will be tackling The First Time. This is track 9 off of our latest album, Drown the Wind. And there's a lot of good stuff. But if you're a longtime listener to the podcast, you know what's coming right now.
Whatcha, Drinkin.
Oh, Erick, that was a nice pop. What are you drinking today there, buddy?
Oh, this is a fun one. So it's a little old school mixed with new school. And what I mean by that, we're going to Oskar Blues Brewery.
Hey, they're just down the road
from me. Colorado or Wyoming?
Colorado. They're just north of Boulder in Lyons.
Gotcha.
Wow.
We're going to Oskar Blues Brewery in Colorado. Now, let's go way back, 10 years maybe. I discovered a beer called Dale's Pale Ale from Oskar Blues. And this was my go-to for a while. While my good friend Lance was pushing things like Rolling Rock and Heineken, I was saying, no, Lance, no, we don't drink that. Let us drink Dale's Pale Ale instead, it was a pale ale, so it wasn't an IPA, but it had just a great piney taste, and it was glorious. Wouldn't you agree?
It is pretty good, and just for the records, that was a 1 day of weakness, so that it was not a regularity of the Rolling Rock. Just throwing that out there.
One day is all it takes to be canceled. Man, you failed in every sense of the word. But what they did this year, and this just came out, Oskar Blues has now released the Double Dale's American Double India Pale Ale. And they've upped the ABV to 9%. They've increased the hop profile to it. And this is just a glorious drinking double IPA. You guys have been listening all season and last season. You know how I feel about the double IPAs. You know, it's never going to be a bad thing. And Oskar Blues does it really well in this. Let's give it a little taste.
Yeah, the Westy world is a big fan of the IPA.
I just kind of want to end the whole podcast right there.
Just end it on a high note.
It's so good. It's like it's the first time.
Like it is the first time.
I see what you did there.
You see what I did? Bringing it all back.
I'm gonna have to see if we've got that here yet in beautiful Wyoming. I'm sure we do, but yeah.
It's good, dude. Oskar Blues they do some really cool stuff, and they've stuck with it. They don't change up, their lineup too much, and when they make changes, it's always for the better, and I appreciate that about them.
Is that what you appreciate about them?
That's what I appreciate about them.
It would be a shame if you couldn't get your hands on that, Bobby. I mean, you're a heck of a lot closer to Oskar Blues than we are.
We've got a lot of the Oskar Blues stuff in most of our liquor stores here, so I'll take a look next time I'm out.
Hey, a worst case scenario, just ask one of the dudes in the liquor store to start buying beer for you. That's what we did down here. When we find a good beer, I hit up our 3 local liquor stores and I say, hey, will you guys carry this? And 9 times out of 10, they'll order it.
So we're not as restrictive as the 3 of us discovered Utah to be as far as the, acquiring. Yeah, the state. We don't have state-run liquor stores, but we do have state-run distribution. So all of the liquor and alcohol has to go through that distribution. Now, the stores themselves are independently owned, but they've got just that, admittedly, pretty sizable list of what they can bring into their store, what's available from the distribution. So
I don't understand.
I don't either. It's frustrating,
ways.
But we're getting better.
Well, all I'm hearing is you saying, I can't wait to move to California.
Yes.
Yeah, because I can totally afford that.
You can live with Lance. That's totally fine.
At least come visit.
Oh,
Yeah,
absolutely.
oh,
Yeah. I need to
Yeah,
get back
we
out
should
there.
do a live podcast, maybe in order. If we pull that off.
Ooh, that'd be fun.
It would be. And we'll video that.
Well, now you're just getting silly, Lance. Well, speaking of things that are glorious, let's talk about the first time. And like we've done in almost every single episode, this is the perfect time to pause our beautiful voices and go spin it on Spotify or Apple Music or wherever you listen to streaming music, just so you get that song through your head and you kind of have an idea about what we're talking about when we get to certain parts of the song. So go ahead and do that now.
This is one of the songs, at least as it was handed to me, that name-wise went through a couple different permutations, and I'm assuming that also happened to the arrangement. So, Eric, why don't you talk about like the origins of this song?
Well, we have to go back to the very beginning. Fun fact, this was the first new material written for What Would Be Drown the Wind. So we're not including Entwined and Distraction and Oracle, songs that existed even before West of House. But coming right out of the recording and release of Crescendo of Silence, this was the very first thing that I started working on. And I checked the notes, on October 23rd, 2020. Now, Crescendo had just been out a month at that point.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the hell I was doing writing new material in the middle of a promotional cycle. I don't know what was going on in my mind, but for whatever reason, I started on this, and the first name for it, it's funny you mentioned the name changes because there are 3 on this one. I think it's the only song that went through 3 iterations. This song was originally called The Cleaner. Don't know why. No clue, but that's what we decided to call it. And the demo is just one guitar with a really terrible kick and snare backbeat. Just do, ka. It was so simple. It was foolishness. I don't even know why I put it on there. And, let me give you a little taste of that demo right now. Okay, so you can hear the guitar that's in that demo still there. That was my final guitar track, but I pulled that out in October, and then for whatever reason, the song sat until May. Didn't touch it again. I don't even recall why, but it sat until May, and then that's when we really started putting in work again, and we changed the name once the lyrics came in, and the song became, what's the name, Lance?
Well, before we I'm going to tease this a little bit. I have a theory.
Why you gotta tease the people?
Well, because I want to go back to The Cleaner.
Okay, let's go back to The Cleaner.
Is there any chance that name sat upon your brain bag because your house cleaner visited you that day, and you recorded it, and you're like, I'm in the mood for cleaning? Any truth to that?
I mean, maybe if that were true, then Denmark Calling should have been called The Cleaner, since that was when the housekeepers, walked into the garage with me holding out, an iteration of the note. And we'll actually get into that. So I don't know. I mean, maybe subconsciously, if I had written this on a Thursday, I don't know if this day was a Thursday, but if it was, then I'll say yes.
We'll have to double check that. 10/23/20. But yeah, Westies, you should go back to that Denmark episode. It is a good story. about the
Great season 1 story.
the walk-in lingering note.
10/23/20 was in fact a Friday.
Oh,
See, it could have sat in. So you probably
so
started
maybe
it.
like the next day I was thinking of it, like they did a really good job.
Yes.
Kinda
And I'm
Jesse
like,
Yes.
you know what?
idea.
I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good. So I'm going to dedicate this song to them.
That's-
I don't know if it's true, but let's go with it.
It is now.
Let that become West of House lore.
That is the legend.
Absolutely. But for some reason, we then sat on the word float, which I know for me, I often got mixed up with one of our songs that was originally titled Clouds. Because, floating on clouds.
It
But-
makes sense. I mean,
Yeah.
they're from the same, genre of words, I guess you could say.
Sure.
So we move on to float. The cleaner is now gone. It's off into Lance word, the ether.
Yes.
And, I pulled it back up. Now we're really heavy into the Drown the Wind sessions. And the one guitar that I had laid down, just a Strat through the Helix Native. It's what you're hearing right now. For whatever reason, this tone is just love to me. It sounded so good, and for, again, very strange, but it was all correct. I didn't make any mistakes, which is amazing. So why screw with it at that point? So that became my final guitar.
That sound, I was re-listening to that in preparation for this episode, and just the way you played it in addition to the sound itself, there's an attack to those chords that you're hitting where you're not like strumming through and you hear the individual strings. It's just clang. Oh, so good. I love that sound.
With a lot of
Oh,
space,
thanks, man.
too. That's what I like about it.
It just had, it had room to breathe, and it had to be a Strat. I mean, when you hear that sound, it has to be a Strat. That doesn't work on any other guitar. With a Gibson, it would have been muddy. Ibanez, I can't play their necks anyways because they're too thin. The PRS wouldn't work. Just for some reason, it was that Strat sound. I think it's the most Stratty thing we may have on the new album.
Yeah, it's got a good
it's
edge.
definitely got that bluesy sort of thing going on to it.
And the only thing that I redid for, we're still calling it Float at this time, was the intro. The demo intro I got was very sloppy. And so I redid the intro. And now, Lance, you'll probably remember this. The intro initially was 4 run-throughs of that phrasing.
Yeah, you're right. That we had a big discussion about that, and I think we cut it.
It was a long discussion. I mean, it didn't get heated or anything, but this was. I mean, go ahead and walk us through that. How you recall it?
Yeah, I recall it being. I loved it. I loved the space, kind of like we've talked about the tone. It was a cool setup, and I don't know if it was because we were at that point, since it was a later song, and us assembling stuff, maybe shortening up the song just for time-wise for album balance, but I think we just cut it in half to 2, but we went back and forth about it because you were more mental about it, I'd say, and I thought it was beautiful, but then I think we both agreed, okay, let's lessen it down and move on, and then we'll just get into the hook of the verse.
Yeah, it was something I loved, but I think when you did 4 run-throughs of it, I think we didn't hit a lyric then until the minute mark, and for whatever reason, it felt long. It's beautiful. It drew me in. I really loved that intro, but I wasn't going to put any words over it, to mess it up. I didn't want to screw it up with my stupid voice. But yeah, it was such a mundane thing, but we discussed it for quite a bit. I know. I remember going back and forth like, what do I do, Lance? It's 4. Now it's 2. I think it's 2, but are we now destroying this beautiful baby?
It is
I mean,
these
these are the things, Westies, that I mean, we get really serious about. Sometimes we dive into the weeds for some of these things, but it's all for a good cause at the end of the day.
Yeah, I haven't heard the version of it with the 4 run-throughs, and just trying to imagine it, like I could take the session and double that intro if I wanted to, and that does seem like it would be like a little long in the tooth, and I mean, if you're not hitting a lyric until the minute mark, you can get this sense from the listener of like, okay, like, come on, let's get to it.
Yeah, and this was always, well, you know what? Let me take that back. this wasn't always in the track placing that it was. Initially, I think one of the first track listings I did, I threw first time at the 4 spot, because it had a very commercial feel to it. But then, and Lance and I are the ones that we put together the track listing for this album, and it ended up at 9. And in position 9, that's not a song where you want an intro that takes you on a journey for a minute before the words come in.
Yeah, it's true. And I think that was partly, Bobby, you hit that. If it's a minute in, it was a nice change up to have those 4 progressions, but it's more for the musicians. And so that's more of a selfish thing we liked, but I think it was a final decision. It doesn't fit with any other song that we have that long of an intro. So let's just cut it and it'll still sound awesome. And let's move forward, turn the page.
And it worked. It worked. We get right into it on this one. And really, guitar-wise, the only other thing I did for this song was the outro solo. Because, we go back to Dave and Kevin being very busy, babies popping out everywhere, diapers being changed, little creatures are crying. So I threw down the solo for this one. It's so simple. And it's so blues based. But my whole thought about this song is nothing could be put on this song that takes away from the lyrics. And we'll dive more into that near the end of the episode. But the lyrics to this one were so important to me. I didn't want to throw in any kind of fluff. Nothing that needed to be, that your attention would be drawn to rather than what was being said. After the guitar, I threw on some synth. This was a fun one. So there's a company called Applied Acoustic Systems. I don't know if any of you guys out there are familiar with them, but they make pads that are just glorious. And the sound pack I used for this one, I'm going to plug it right now. They're not giving me any money, but you should give them your money because it sounds awesome. This sound pack is called Plastic Pop, and the actual pad I'm using inside that Plastic Pop sound pack is called Dark Wave. That's what you're listening to right now. Now it's also, I use the same thing, and Bobby, I don't know if you're hearing this and putting it together, but this is the same pad that I used on my solo release on the song This Is Not For You.
Okay, so that's a 30-minute piece. Where is
it's near the end. It's near the end.
Okay.
The layers at the end that build up to that
gotcha.
Huge major key outro.
I do kind of remember that, but I've also repressed a lot of that because we'll get into that whenever we get to that episode.
Well, you can't pick out parts in the 30-minute song at a moment's notice without,
that I haven't
warning
I
you?
haven't touched, I haven't dug into the session in over a year now.
We should really get into that. I mean, I know we'll need counseling again, but
yeah, it's okay.
We should. We still have a bonus episode coming with that.
Yeah. Shh, don't tell anyone. No, that is such a Vangelis sound. I love that sound.
Yes, that's, that name was escaping me, because it's got this futuristic organ sound. And to me, it sounds like if you were, at a baseball game, but in the Blade Runner universe.
Wow.
Just imagining an android or replicant. Take me out to the ball game. Take me out to the crowd.
And then they get taken out, because they're replicants. And that's what Blade Runners do.
Yep. So it is. So it is written. So it is done. This is the way.
That's our plug for Vangelis and Blade Runner, which are all beautiful things.
No, I love that sound. What's funny, and I was gonna save this for the mixing bit, but so the sound you gave me from that was massive. It has all this low end and top end. It's just a very broad sound. And what's funny is in the final version of the song, all of that low end I shoveled out. As massive as it sounded on its own, as amazing as it was competing with Lance's bass, which we'll get to in a little bit here.
Which is so good. It's so good.
It's so good.
So good.
But yeah, once I got it in there, I was like, man, this is just competing. So Fortunately, I was able to still make it work with more of that kind of top end shimmer, and that still gives you that sort of Vangelis, Blade Runner, cyberpunk vibe. So, and
It
fits
sits
the
well.
song so well. Yeah.
Yeah, it's such a strange sounding pad and such a mainstream-esque song. It fit perfectly, and it sits perfectly in the song. Hell of a job there. I mean, I'll probably tell you that when we get to the studios conversation, but here's just a precursor. I'm going to say, hell of a job, Bobby.
Thanks, man.
So then we move on to Dave guitars. So while Dave dealing with baby, he did have some time to throw down some guitars, and he sent me 4 tracks. Basically 2 different phrases, both left right. This first pair of tracks, which I'm playing now. This was basically just volume swells and arpeggiated picking. One thing that Dave does extremely well, Kevin does this too, is when given a demo and some direction, he takes that and he just plays something that fits the song perfectly. And he didn't overplay in any stretch of the imagination. And these swells and, oh God, this picking we're listening to, I could listen to it all day. It fits well because, Bobby kind of made a comment, with how like I was hitting my rhythms on the guitars, and the arpeggiated picking mixes with that in such a wonderful way to create the soundscape that really draws
Those
the listener
volume
in.
swells are such a Dave thing too. Like that's
Dave
yeah,
he's a swell master.
He's very
He's a
swole
swaster.
with his guitar playing. He actually is, yeah.
He is pretty swole. Yeah, I know the dude works out.
Yeah.
So he wears those tight T-shirts that I can't quite pull off.
I was just gonna say
And,
he
you know,
does add this
Go ahead.
color on whenever he does additions, right? Like you give it, like you said, you give him something. He finds this technical color too. It's not fluff. It's not frou-frou. It's very technical, but it's so perfectly coloring, filling in the space or adding things that you don't even think about. But when he adds it, it really ups the professional level, I think, to what the song ends up becoming. So good on you, Dave, who's not here to take that compliment.
Well, and what he's doing here, and if you have a musical ear, you might be catching it. He's playing chord inversions based off what I'm playing. So he's not just doubling things that I'm playing and doing swells with them and picking. He's doing inversions of those chords, which leads to a very different sound. And that's one thing he does. Dave knows, you give him a chord, he knows 16 positions for it and all the inversions and everything else. And he can take something and play something completely different that's still in that, I don't know, that family of chordal range, and turn it into something that sounds just really beautiful. It's kind of like a tapestry, what he's putting together.
Agreed.
And so his second pair of guitar, now this is, what he's doing here, he's almost creating keyboard pads, but with his guitar. So he's creating guitar pads. It's very synth-like, but it doesn't get in the way of the actual, Vangelis synth that we have going on too. And just very simple, again, left-right guitars, creating padding under that, so there's something there, but it's not getting away in the space. It's not too much. It's not taking your ear away from it. But if you remove those pads from the song,
There's
wouldn't
something
be
going on
complete.
with his effects there too, and I kind of wish Dave was here to confirm it, but it sounds like that's what I was going to say. Yeah,
It's a shimmer. It's a guitar.
yeah.
That's
so
what you're
for the
hearing is the
listeners,
guitar shimmer.
A shimmer reverb is a reverb on the guitar, an echo, if you will, that is then pitched up an octave. So with that, you get this kind of twinkly sound and blend it in with the rest of the track. Again, just sounds killer, and if you take it away, something's missing for sure.
Both the Westies and Lance enjoyed that, since I had no idea what a shimmer was.
Well, now you know. And
Well,
knowing
you know.
is half the battle.
So true.
So, then we're done with
Wait,
guitar. Oh,
wait, what?
We're not done with guitars. Yes. Okay, it's
Wait.
not Kevin either. Who else
Tommy?
played guitar in this song?
No. I've never seen that happen.
That was
Wow.
a genuine belly laugh.
Am I that
No,
bad?
ladies and gentlemen, on his first song on the album, not the first recorded, but the first that we're talking about in this season. Bobby Phillips, you actually played guitar on this song.
Was, I believe, chronologically the second song on this album that I played guitar on, but as the listeners are hearing it, this is the first one in track order that you're going to hear. And when I was first asked to contribute guitars to a couple of songs on this album, I was flattered. I had already been doing backing vocals and, of course, mixing. But
do we pay you extra for that?
We'll discuss my fee later.
Yeah, it's not gonna happen. We appreciate your mixing.
No, guitar's fun, man.
That. Yeah, this is more a love relationship.
Yep. So I've been playing guitar since ever. And I remember this one. I had originally given you guys a couple different tracks to kind of slot in there, and I think all of Dave's parts were already in there as well. And I was kind of approaching it, trying to find the space, and eventually it came down to just using tracks in the bridge, which we will play those. And then on top of that, towards the back half of the bridge over the note, which we keep teasing, I added a lead solo. So the bridge part, for the guitar players out there, I use a Synergy preamp system, which is all tube-based. They're kind of these tube cartridges that you slot into the system. They give you different tones. So I've got like a Fender one and a Soldano one and a Marshall one, all this stuff, all this technical stuff. Lance, you raising your hands?
No, I'm mocking.
He's mocking.
He can't do this right now, is my guess.
Oh.
Especially if he goes straight out and then up. No. Yeah.
So
for the bridge guitars, I used a Morgan AC, which is kind of a Vox AC30 type tone. It's kind of a thick.
God, I love the Morgan. I got to throw in something here. That Morgan sound, Jesus. One of the best boutique amps out there. If you've got a lot of money to waste, go buy a
it's all
freaking
good,
Morgan.
Man. The Morgan fit this really well because we had all that sort of chimey, rich guitar work going on. It just complemented everything well. The lead, however, under the note, that's my Soldano SLO module, which is just the greatest. The Soldano SLO 100 is the greatest lead solo tone ever. I said it. I will fight anybody who disagrees with me. But if you play a ripping good solo through a Soldano, chef's kiss. It's amazing.
You know, the interesting thing is, and, you know, Bobby, maybe we can get into this and, you know, tell the listeners. So if you're a musician, first, let me give you some great advice. You got to have thick skin. And you have to be willing to play parts that fit the song, and if they don't work, then they don't work. It's not anything on your talent. Bobby is, I think he's probably the best guitarist out of the whole band, even though he's not in the band. Technically, the guy shreds over all of us. This is true. We know this. And the parts you gave, the bridge and the solo were great, but now there was some verse stuff too. And it's not that it was bad, but let's talk about stuff
honestly,
that
I don't even
fit.
remember what those parts were. And when I recorded them, I had a separate session from the mix session. So I would have to pull that up to take a look, and that would interrupt the recording, which is no bueno for the listener. So
it's okay, though. We have archives. Here they are right now.
at the time, you know, I added those parts and I was like, yeah, this is awesome. This makes the song. And you kind of have to sometimes just, you know, take a day or two and come back to it, listen with fresh ears, and realize that maybe it doesn't fit the song. Maybe it's too much. And you're just stacking, you know, on top of Erick's one guitar and Dave's, 4 guitars, 2 pairs, in adding more to that, and I usually record in pairs like that too, it's just too much guitar, which is, kind of sacrilege to say. There's never too much guitar. But in this case, it was.
I know,
and
seriously,
so,
right?
Erick had the final say of like, it's too much, and that's fine. You can't be precious about that sort of thing, especially in that sort of context where you're being brought in to like add something, add what you're going to add. And then, the final say is the final say. If you play 12 parts and 4 of them make it, hey, be happy the 4 made it. Like that's still a victory in my book. So, yeah.
And it's not easy. I mean, we'll take a song, I don't know, like American would be one for a good example. There's a lot of stuff off Crescendo Silence where I'll throw, originally 12, 14 guitar tracks into it. And then there comes a time where you sit down with it and you're like, okay, this one doesn't actually add anything. Okay, this one gets in the way. And you start stripping away. And, as long as you could take your ego out of it, it's okay. We had one song off Crescendo Silence, Moving Shadows, which I wrote, all the guitar on it, I came up with. And I took all my guitar out of it because, frankly, Dave played it a hell of a lot better. And that's just part of writing a great song. It's not all about, look at all the stuff I can do. It's what can make that song even better. And if my parts aren't up to snuff and aren't as good as someone else's, you come to a point where you're like, well, kill them. It's okay because you serve the song first. And the great thing about West of House, all the guys, we know that the song gets served first. And if it doesn't work, there's nothing personal about saying, hey, this doesn't work. Because we're all here to make the song great.
Those were your lines. I think it was just Dave's tone or touch to it. Yeah.
He's just better. At the end of the day, he's a great guitarist. And the way my hands are so corroded by carpal tunnel.
Those are your bones.
Forget
those are
it.
your bones.
It's okay.
You got to be willing to kill your darlings. So
it's still my baby.
Ugh, I could say it. You got to be willing to kill your darlings. There we go.
You're not even drinking real beer. You can't talk like that if you're not drinking real
I am
beer.
like,
now I'm starting to worry about you.
I'm still half hungover from last night. I got in at 3 a.m.
Yikes. Well, that's good. I thought you said that you got to be willing to kill your dog, and I was about to drive to Wyoming and punch you. So
that's some John Wick shit right there.
Hey, we can all agree dogs are better than people.
Yeah,
so.
We don't.
You know what? I mean, one thing I don't know.
Another Easter egg.
Oh God, don't get me started. One thing I don't know if I've told you, Bobby. Maybe I have. Maybe I've forgotten because I'm old and I forget a lot of stuff. One, your ability to just cut things away and not think twice about it is fantastic. It makes you a wonderful working partner. But what you throw into the bridge, and we've already played it, you've heard how great it is, especially that solo. It works so well that it's a focal point for me every time I listen to the song with what you're playing under the note. It builds and it creates this sense of anticipation and release that it makes the first time one of my favorite songs on the album, and a big part of that is because of you.
And I appreciate the flattery on the solo under the note. There was I was kind of taking a Johnny Greenwood approach to that because it's so easy to overplay. Nice. That's something like I've just had to learn over the years and years of playing guitar. Like, I appreciate it, and I'm not trying to like stroke my own ego, but I know I have technical ability. But more often than not, less is more. And just holding a note and like bending the crap out of it, or giving it a ton of vibrato, and not being flashy and shreddy and fast with it. Just banging on that same note and kind of harmonizing and following you up on the note just made sense. And yeah, I was going for that anticipation and that sort of energy and tension, and it worked when I heard it the first time, and you obviously loved it, so we kept it in the song.
Even more important, Lance, who is Johnny Greenwood?
I have no idea.
Oh, Lance, listeners out there, you probably already know. If you don't know who Johnny Greenwood is, he's the guitarist for Radiohead. And my God, the man is an aural, A-U-R-A-L, genius. what he puts together he's amazing, people. I have nothing but good things to say about Radiohead.
I agree. I love them. I have, I think, 3 albums. They're fun. I don't necessarily know who they are.
They're not supposed to be fun.
I
Radio
don't know.
albums like draw
supposed
you
to make
in
you
and
feel
take you to
feelings.
another world.
At
least you know
it.
I'll give you at least you know who Radiohead is. So
Yeah. Yeah, I think
what 3 albums?
I think the Bends is my favorite. And I'm not sure what the other 2 are. I can't think of it, but
Oh God, you're just making it up. You're making everything.
no,
up
I
at this
mean the
point.
Bends
Try
was
to
my
sound
first
wrong.
one, and then I got 2 others, and they're awesome. They get me through when I drive up the 395 up to the Sierra Nevadas. I enjoy them.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's a perfect
Yes.
job for Radiohead.
Perfect.
I will give you that.
Love it.
Good point. Lance, why don't you tell us about bass?
So, Bobby, correct me. I do believe I went back to a single track send file on this one.
You certainly did.
I didn't look because I was so confident in that, because this type of song, and I share this every now and then, it's definitely not a bass lead. It's more I need to complement those tones, the vocals, and obviously all those guitar lines. And so to me, it's a very mellow, complimentary song for me from the 4-string department. And for me, the verses is where I kind of played around a little bit. I wanted to kind of go, most of it filling with whole note action, but I had a lot of little sliding tensions that would then be mostly paired with some walking resolution lines at the end of like each 2 sections. It's probably my favorite part, musically speaking, of this song from my end. And again, for the chorus and bridge, again, I was kind of mellow on these sections. I wanted to stay out of what the other guys are doing on this one. But in the bridge, I think I brought in a little bit of tension here, some sliding notes, and hopefully I attempted some tasteful additions to the song. But you guys, it sounded like you had a little bit of an infatuation with it. We haven't really talked about that. For me, it was just kind of like, hey, this is very vanilla. I want to be tasteful, but I'm not the main course here. So, what is it
The song's not vanilla.
No,
If that's what
but
you're saying.
no, but it's
None of
Your
it's
part's
vanilla.
not vanilla. I mean, you do some transition things that are not. If they're vanilla, they're like vanilla with chocolate chips thrown in. I mean, some of your transitions here, when you go, and I'm not a bass player, so I'm going to screw it up. But you do some stuff higher on the neck to transition to other parts. It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's vanilla
That's not
bean,
vanilla
not
at all.
vanilla extract.
It draws your ear, and we've cranked it up in the mix. Bobby put it in a place in the mix where you can really
it's
tell
true.
what's going
and
on.
for
and
me,
it's great.
It's in the verse, and then there's a 1 or 2 sections in the bridge. But yeah, no, I love those parts, and I do those all the time, here or there, but they do generally go unnoticed. But for me, I got to stay out of the way, and then there's something catchy as we move into the next section. That's kind of where I like to fill in this type of a song, where it's not about me, but I'm going to fill in some fun, as we do, like you said, in those transitions. So that's all I got that I can talk about myself comfortably.
That was a lot of words to say you played bass.
Yep.
No, it was. I mean, we've talked about the role of bass guitar on this podcast before, and it's such an interesting instrument because the foundational approach to bass is to be complementary to what else is going on. But the way you incorporate melody in your transitions and to an almost lead-like state, it's always great. You do it again in this. There's parts of the song where my ear specifically goes to the bass for what I want to hear. And it doesn't step on a vocal. It doesn't step on anything else. It's like you put it in at the perfect spot. So your ear is always drawn to something different. I think that's good for the listener too, because it allows them to go on this journey where like, oh, I hear this. Now I hear this. Oh, this lyric line. Oh, this bass thing. Oh, Tommy did some stuff. That's cool. And then, oh God, Bobby's playing a solo and the note. and it pulls you in to a cavalcade of awesomeness.
Ooh, good word.
Wow.
Cavalcade.
New album title.
There we go.
Wow.
Third album, Cavalcade of Awesomeness.
Well, thanks, fellas. I think in this song, I just had a visual of being, if you guys are into construction, so the pronunciation of this word is important. But when you're laying
I don't think you should be
floorboards-
talking about pronunciation. You are the last
Think twice
person.
before you talk, Lance. Think twice.
That's
Measure twice, cut once.
That's exactly right. But more importantly, and when you're doing molding and stuff, you have little seams that are joining between a wall or something in your actual.
Oh God, he's gonna say it.
But
he's gonna say
it's
it.
the caulk between two other medians. So that's sometimes,
The emphasis on the L.
and that's C.
There's no word. There's no word in the English language where you overemphasize the L so hard than the word caulk.
Caulk. Yeah, that's CAUL there for you guys. So just making sure you heard me
So
right.
Are you saying you're the caulk of the band?
On this song, I was filling lots of caulk
He's
between
the
your
caulk
parts.
master.
Yes.
All right. So next we've got drums. After drums, we have vocals.
Well, hey,
So let's go ahead and wait.
should we
we're
talk
supposed to
about drums?
Oh, fine, whatever. Go ahead.
Tommy played drums.
Tommy played drums.
On one track.
One track of drums.
So there are some fun stories that come with this. I don't know how fun Tommy will think they are, but again, he's not here, people, so we can only say what we can say. There's a musical maxim, so to speak, and it kind of says sometimes the easiest, in quote, songs are the hardest. And this is a perfect example. When you listen the first time, you're not listening to a complicated song. Nothing about it is complicated on the surface. There may be some other things that went on that took some, some talent, but nothing on the surface is complicated. But this song with Tommy recording the drums, and again, this isn't a rip on Tommy. This is just, it's part of working distance-wise, which was a big part of this. It took from May all the way up till August to get this down. So that's, May, June, July. That's almost 4 months, to get this song nailed down. And the biggest problem of it was the offbeats. And we kind of had a similar issue in American with bass and the rhythm guitar, where that, for whatever reason, Lance wasn't hearing offbeats and I had to crank stuff up, and it wasn't Lance's fault. It's just there's a lot going on there. And there's not quite as much going on in the first time, and you guys can chime in and correct me if I'm missing something. It was all about offbeats in this song, and the syncopation is so important in the first time that if the drums and the rhythm aren't in sync, the song falls apart.
That's going to be a Lance thing, if anything, because I was not clued into that as closely as you were, apparently. And I
you didn't
usually
get that
am
conversation.
with that, so.
Well, if you remember, your original drum track, straightforward as it is, but it created the space for all of us to do that syncopation you're talking about. And I think when Tommy got into it, as he often does, he Tommied it a little too much. And I think we had to pull back a little bit because we lost a little bit of that space and that syncopation you're talking about, which is why you were mentioning that whole thing about easy songs sometimes. More so for the rhythm section, I think people can easily overplay in a song like that, where you have that space that the song demands so that you can hear all the parts you're trying to share with your audience.
Yeah, it was, I don't know. I'm not a drummer, so I can't, I'm not berating Tommy for this. And my mind works in a completely different way as a songwriter and a guitarist. Now, Bobby, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, and we can even cut it out if I am really wrong. Now, on this one, I think even up to the last take that Tommy did, there were still some offbeats missing. So were some things added to this when it came to you?
So, yeah, there was, I was given an entire pack of drum stems, like some 20 tracks, because Tommy has more
One
microphones, and excess is the name of the game with him.
One track.
But there were, in the original part that he played, there were these kind of hi-hat, I call them swoops, the kind of psst kind of thing, where he opens and closes the hi-hat. And he played them in the main part, but they weren't always super strong and consistent. And there was discussion. I don't remember if it was in the main chat between the four of us or if Tommy hit me up on the side, but we ended up adding, basically we sampled ourselves. We took a hi-hat swoop, is what I'm going to call it, from Oracle and copied it over to the first time. And it was
Okay, for whatever reason, I'm not remembering this.
I don't either.
We took stuff from Oracle and threw it into the first time?
Yes, we did.
Is this the first time I'm learning this?
Yeah, it might be.
Wow, I
Yeah,
didn't
we
know
took
that either.
Yeah, so we'll
That is
play.
really cool.
I'll play the a piece of the original drum part. I will play just the sampled swoop, just really quick. And so when you take that and overlay it into what Tommy had already played, it just reinforces that accent on the second. So it would be the second downbeat, sorry. It would be on the second downbeat there. It just accentuates that and reinforces it and just gives that, if you want to call it an offbeat, that gives it more impact there on those verse hits. So yeah, we flew that in from Oracle into the first time. So we sampled
God,
ourselves.
That is great. That is so fun to learn.
Bobby, is that song? Did you have to change the timing of that? I mean, how close is that song in terms of beats per minute than this one?
All it is one hit, the one sample. It's just a psh, that's all it is. I'm not copying like a whole beat. It's just one single hit. So that one hit gets flown in.
And then just copy and paste it kind of thing?
Just once I slice it and then I can line it up on the grid that the song was played to. I forget the tempo, but however many beats per minute it is, I just lock it in on that second downbeat every verse hit there. So
And that slicing is why you're the ninja.
Yes. Slices, he dices. Look at that tomato.
But wait, there's more. No, there really
Mr.
isn't.
Popeil.
Yeah, no, we did. Yeah, that's, basically some cross-pollination right there. And it's cool when you can sample yourself to, bring something in from one song to another song. So it's just kind of a fun little Easter egg there.
That's cool.
Nice.
And in addition, because I think, as you said, Tommy Tommy'd it and just kind of overplayed in his original tracks, he had to do something, so he gave me a tambourine track as well, which admittedly, and maybe to my chagrin at the same time, is still better than a cowbell, but I do love me some cowbell. But there's a tambourine track that plays through the choruses and then from the note through to the end of the song.
Yeah, the tambourine's nice. I like it.
Yeah, it adds some energy to the choruses. It was a good addition there. Good job, Tommy. You're still fired.
Good job. We're proud of you, Tommy. You did well. At the end of the day, you played what the song needed.
Yep.
And really, that's all we can ask.
Yep. So we should probably move on to the vocals here, since we've made some references the entire show.
Yeah, there are vocals in this song, and I don't know if I'm describing it right. For whatever reason, though, this song feels to me like the most mainstream vocal performance that I've ever given on any of our albums. Now, what I mean about mainstream. So we've talked in previous episodes about how I don't have the prototypical rock singer voice. You either like it or you hate it. I'm okay with that. I like it now. If you hate it, nuts to you. Turn off the podcast.
Yeah, why are you even listening?
Seriously, it's just rude at this point. But for this one, the song is, I don't know, it's kind of anathema, now to say, but the song is so commercial to me in the best way. And the fact, with the melody and the instrumentation, it just draws you in. If we were ever to have a song that were actually to chart, I think it would be the first time. So I wanted to give a very mainstream performance on this album. It's not a song that calls for flashiness. I didn't do any, high screams or range extremes, because all attention needs to be on the lyrics.
It's a bittersweet reminder as she races by faster than she should.
Ironically, I mean, now that I think about it, after I've said that whole thing about range extremes, this song actually, I believe, contains the lowest and the highest notes of any West of House songs. Bobby, would that be true?
Yeah, so you hit me up earlier to double check on that because you weren't entirely sure. I dove into the song. The lowest note, and we can play a clip of that with you at the very end of the choruses there, float along with you, that's an A2.
And float along with you. And float along with you.
And then your highest note is actually a backing vocal in the bridge there, the word familiar. We can play that isolated here.
It's a feeling I'm familiar with, a thorn in my side.
That is a D5, so you're looking at about a 2.5 octave spread there.
Very impressive.
In one
not
song.
bad. I mean, it's not my extremes. I can go lower and higher, which we'll save that for the third album. But I mean, for this song, you sing what works. You know, it's not about octave range. I've known plenty of people bragging about their 4-octave range, but you know, their tone is terrible. So who the hell cares? Where you get a guy like, let's say, Johnny Cash, who can sing about 4 notes, but my God, they sound glorious.
So good.
So remember, people, it's not about the range. It's what you do with it.
Speaking of notes.
The note.
The note.
Do we talk about the note?
No, I think we move on. It's
no one cares about
not a big deal.
the note. No. So, if you recall in season 1, we had a song called Denmark Calling. We've already referred to that episode when talking about housekeepers. Denmark Calling had what we then called the note. And the note in that one was 10.64 seconds. No slouch, no world's records here, but it's a long note. Sounds something like this.
Splash, mad dash.
You know, so it was cool. It was fun to do. I didn't intend to try to break that record for myself. But there is a part in this song that called for the note. And, well, you know, let me just play it.
Never go away.
So that note, the breath actually comes right before the words that will never. So the whole that will never until the end of those words, that's one breath. Now that note clocks in, and I timed this last night, so this is legit, at 21.33 seconds. Again, not a record by any extent of the imagination. Morten Harket from Aha, I have a live clip of him going over 30 seconds with a note, which is, I can't even comprehend this. But 21.33 seconds on this. And the craziest thing about this, I did that when I was recording demo vocals, and I did it sitting down. So there wasn't like great posture or anything. I just took a really big breath, because if you know me, I have really big lungs and a very big mouth. And I just kept going and going. I'm like, okay, I'm going to go up a step, go up a step, go up a step. And then at the end, you know, it's like, it totally dies out. But the funny thing is, when I tried to redo final vocals, I could not replicate the note while standing up. For whatever reason, it was physically impossible. So if you come see us live, and we played this song at Tommy's wedding, you will not hear the note. You will hear some different sort of arrangement, because I don't think I could sing that live. 21 seconds is a long freaking time.
I remember when we were doing the mix, you telling me about that when you first handed me the tracks. You were like, look, this is it. I did it once. I can't do it again. We have to make this take work. And it worked just fine. There was no problem with it. But I remember part of that being the conversation there.
Eric, was what you couldn't replicate the length or the tone qualities of it?
The length.
Interesting.
Because I think standing up, you know, when I go for a long note, and you've played with me live enough to know, my feet will go into like a 60-40 stance.
Yes.
I'll put my weight on my back foot, and all the guys the guys who play with me know that this is coming. And then because the power of a note does not come from the lungs or the throat, it comes from the muscle girdle. This is proper singing 101. And before you hit these notes, you're flexing your muscle girdle, because that gives that note tone and power. And that's why you don't go flat, and it maintains that power for the entire time. So, I mean, Lance has seen me, back up, and here I go into the note. I can't do it for whatever reason. For 21 seconds live, I can't. I don't smoke. I don't do anything stupid like that. But I don't even know how I did it sitting down. No clue how that happened.
That's what's amazing, really, because you wouldn't think you'd be able to fill your lungs up enough or get the whole core, firing to support that. But pretty cool.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe standing up, like I start overcompensating, and sitting down, I was like, oh, what the hell? I'm just going to breathe and sing a note. And the note never ended. But the way the chordal structure goes, it had to go that entire time.
Yeah.
And I wasn't going to do two different notes and put them together, because that's cheap.
That never sounds right anyway.
No, it's not right. And people would be able to, we got effects, we got reverb on it, we got other things. But, and Bobby is my God's honest witness. That is one note.
It is, absolutely. There's no splicing. There's no dicing. It's straight up one note. I heard the performance. There's no seams or anything. We just let it ride.
And don't expect the third album for me to double it again.
Yeah, 42.
Because it will lead to death. That's it. I can't beat it. I can't beat 21.33 seconds. That is the zenith of my vocal prowess. So we're just gonna have to rest my laurels on that one.
The back foot thing is just funny, when you're standing, because I do the same thing. It's like cocking cocking. It's not what you think it is. I know we've talked about this. Cocking a shotgun is like here we go,
Yep.
Big note.
You get ready, because I mean, you're a singer, you know this.
I get it.
Singing is a physical, visceral experience.
Yep.
It's a battle. You're going into war with the microphone, and your body is your weapon.
Yep.
And this is how I view singing, especially rock singing. You are fighting that which cannot be tamed. It cannot truly be mastered. And at a moment's notice, your voice could be like, screw you, I'm gone. And you can't do a thing about it when it leaves.
Yep. Nope. I do the same
Lance?
thing. I get it.
That's how I feel when I sing. Yep.
No, that's how everyone feels when you sing. So there were some other vocals on this too, and there are some background vocals. And really, I did very little. The only background vocals I did on this song, I doubled the lead vocal on the bridge an octave higher.
Have I misunderstood or failed to mention? I don't know who I am. It's a feeling I'm familiar with.
I went into the stratosphere. I like to do that octave thing. There's a few singers out there that do that. They'll throw lower octaves or higher octaves, sometimes both, just to create, bigness, hugity, words that I'm making up right now.
Huge.
Now, the other BGVs on this, those were, yet again, Bobby Phillips.
Turn around, my love, and for the first time, let me see you. Hold my gaze until the river comes to take me home.
Who? So, yeah, so this was another one where I was sitting around mixing the song, and the backgrounds came late in the process, like they always do for me, just as I'm finding the song and figuring out what works. Something I went for, I don't remember if it was deliberate or subconscious, but in hindsight, I was playing. In hindsight, I was singing a lot of chord and pedal tones rather than directly following Erick's lead, either a third up or a third down, whatever the song would have called for. I was kind of attempting to add an extra texture in the same range as the guitars, where you'll hear my vocal hold a note while Erick's is going up and down, and then I'll kind of shift with the rest of the chords, but it's not a traditional backing vocal, so more just laying a bed for Erick to sing over. And as we've talked about on the other instruments as we've gone through this episode, letting that vocal and that lyric stand out and be the focal point. So I don't know if I did that deliberately and I was consciously thinking about it, or if it just came out that way subconsciously and my musical brain said, this is the way to do it. And I said, okay, here we go. And so did it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think even more than your BGVs on the Oracle, which I truly love. I think this one may be my favorite. And especially when we got a chance to perform it live. Our harmonies were spot on.
It was so good.
It just sounded so good. It was wonderful. I remember when we were practicing that little Airbnb in Utah. We were playing through the first time, and of course, just on acoustic guitar, so I totally screwed up the rhythm. I played something completely different. But it was such a cool sounding version of the song and so organic.
Yeah.
Just really came to life.
We should do an acoustic version of this for an EP.
We should
do an acoustic EP.
That would be good too. You don't have to twist my arm.
You heard it
Twist
here
my
first,
right arm.
Westies. We're doing an
Not my
acoustic
left.
EP. Estimated time of arrival, eventually.
And it was the BGVs were great, and it was at this time after vocals, BGVs are recorded. 11th hour, I decided to change the name of the song again because float. I go into the lower register, and it wasn't carrying through. I didn't want to change anything, and the word's important, but the word float wasn't carrying through and hitting the ear like I wanted to. So I went back to the phrase that kind of stuck every time you listen to the song, and the song became The First Time. Well, rolling into that, Bobby, why don't you give us some studio notes? I know one thing we want to talk about, which we kind of mentioned, is that intro.
Yeah, so you gave me the intro, and we eventually have it, like we were talking about. And I think the note you gave me on that intro going into the first mix was to have that play through as many times as we ended up deciding it to play, and then having it sort of verb out or echo out into the ether, Lance's word.
I own the word.
Before the full band comes in with the drums and the bass. And
I do. Yeah.
you have an NFT for it? Is that?
It's ether is his non-fungible token.
Yeah, I'll fund your token. So we had it verb out, and we've talked about the plugin RAUM from Native Instruments. That's RAUM. That reverb plugin has a freeze function, which will hold the last thing that it heard and make it sound like it's just a note sustaining forever. And so on that intro, when that last chord hits before it goes into this ethereal echo, I hit that freeze function and automated that so it would do it every time. And it just holds that note.
So on that intro, I mean, there is a vocal there. And for whatever reason, I can't remember where it's from. Where is that vocal from?
So that vocal was actually pulled from the note. I took a copy of the note, moved it to the front of the song, and again, verbed it out. We love our reverb in West of House. So just
so much.
Gobs of it, just goo, and everything goes off into the void. It's amazing. So yeah, we moved that. I moved that from the note, from the bridge, and just verbed it out and had it kind of, it's almost like a tease for that note to come in later, like a sort of a vision of what's to come.
Foreshadowing, if you will.
There we go. That's the word. So, after that, the whole band comes in and we've got everything in there. Really quick, just to run through our track count. We have 21, one drum track. We've got the tambourine, a single bass, 11 guitars, 9 of those rhythm, 2 leads, mine and Erick's. The synth track, we've got 3 lead vocals that I ended up actually splitting into like 6 just for processing purposes, but you gave me 3, so we went with that. And then 9 backing vocals. Erick's 1, and then 8 of mine in stereo pairs. I always track my background vocals in pairs.
Nice.
So that gives us 27 tracks if you count the drums as you should, as one track. Or if you're playing along at home, that's 47 tracks total if you count the individual drum mics. But other than the intro, like most of the mixing is pretty straightforward. The drums were played well. Other than the sample we brought in from the Oracle, there were no kick or snare samples and minimal editing. Tommy played this one well. Bass we talked about, there was a lot of whole note just sustained notes, and to really make those solid and foundational throughout the whole song, I just compressed them more than I usually would, just to have those notes stay solid the whole time they're held out. Guitar is nothing unusual there, just my usual kind of, clear out the low end to make room for the bass and make the guitars fit the song. Synth I already talked about, shoveling out all that low end and just making it sort of a bright, sparkly Vangelis sort of thing and retaining the character of that. And then vocals, again, standard stuff. We had the goo, and we did a similar thing on the note that we did on the intro guitar fade out, where, again, I used ROM. I don't think I used the freeze function, but regardless, I had it just kind of where the source sound of the note fades out while the reverb keeps going. So again, sort of a foreshadowing and, like hearkening back to what happened earlier in the song. So mixing was pretty straightforward, just a few of those little production tricks to kind of highlight some moments.
Good work, Bobby. Love it.
Thanks, man. Very happy with it.
It's time. It is time.
Get it got good.
It's time.
It's time. It's that time.
This is not hyperbole. I have been waiting for this conversation the entire season to talk about the lyrics to this song. And I've said nothing. No one knows anything. No one knows what lurks in the darkest resources in my mind.
I know I'm wrong. But I like my wrong.
Oh, I can already, you're wrong. Yeah, I can guarantee you're wrong. But, I'll start out by saying something else, that if any of our songs should ever be covered by other artists, this is the one I want to hear most. And mostly from a country artist, not that new bro country. No, that is foolishness. I want to hear this from like Sturgill Simpson or Shooter Jennings. Guys, their voices would kill this song in the absolute best way. Now, if you're paying attention, there's a lot of similarities to this, especially with the phrasing. It's very similar to Beautiful Distraction, where there are long sentences broken up to allow for different interpretations. So then moving us into the interpretations conversation, let's talk about, what does this song mean to you?
I'm going to take this one for a spin here because I've got two possible theories.
Oh, I like it.
Yeah, and I think... So my first theory is that it's a straight-ahead love song. It kind of specifically an unrequited love sort of thing, which is I'm getting from As She Races By and Turn Around My Love and For the First Time Let Me See You. But then I kind of get where my second theory comes in is that it's actually sort of saying goodbye to a loved one. I've got images of a husband who, a husband and wife who's grown old together, and the wife is maybe on her hospital bed or hospice bed or even at home, and we can see that the end is coming. And where I'm getting that is a couple different spots. First of all, Float Along With You gives me images of kind of a boatman taking you on your final ride to the end there. And then on top of that, I'm Afraid I'm Not Afraid kind of gives me the idea that, like, I'll be there with you soon sort of thing, where, like, death is coming, she's about to pass, and he's like, I'm right behind you. I'm not afraid of death, and giving myself to surrender. But yeah, Float and the River give me kind of that boatman sort of... Harbinger is too strong of a word because that makes it sort of like an ominous bad thing. But there's sort of an acceptance here that I'm getting. Where I'm getting tripped up is the bridge. I have no idea how the bridge ties into either of those theories, which leads me to believe that I'm probably mostly wrong, if not entirely wrong. But that's what I've got. Two theories, either an unrequited love thing or a acceptance that we're coming to the end together sort of thing.
That's good. I like that. Good job, Bobby.
Lance, what do you got?
Yeah, let me dig into the batter's box here and take a few hacks. I mean, the initial, for me, it's like Bobby, it's very likely it could be a classic love song, but knowing Erick, which I guess it still could be. It probably isn't. But what resonates with me is that this is a love song towards your child. So for me, when I read these lyrics, I really wrestle around my emotions of watching my kids grow up. And for those who don't know, I've got a son and 2 younger daughters. And I kind of think of this personifies a lot of things as a father or as a parent. She, being the daughter, races by faster than she should. That's the classic. They're growing faster than I want them to. I want to hold on to them. I want to, put them in my pocket. I want to hold them there, and I don't want to see them grow up at times. But, I'm always chasing the one that I don't want to catch, because at the same time, I want them to grow and mature. So there's kind of that wrestling as a parent where you're trying to preserve innocence, but you're also wanting to let go of them. And I often use this visual as like a butterfly. You're letting go as it now is in that stage past the larva stage, and they have wings and they're ready to take on life. Yes, like a big, beautiful monarch. So all of that works for me. And, the float along with you, I want to kind of watch you be this amazing person as you get older. So I'm going to float along and kind of watch. But as like most lazy rivers, I'm just floating along, not really participating. I'm just existing as this current takes me. And often I have a beverage in my hand, so it's enjoyable. So that's kind of, where I'm feeling on that one. But the line that sometimes makes me question this is, and I'm afraid I'm not afraid, because that then brings me back to thinking it's more of a romantic love. I'm afraid I'm not afraid to love you, kind of a line, but at the same time, it could be spun either way as a parent. And like Bobby, I think the bridge kind of, I don't know. I don't want to say it pokes holes in my theories, but at the same time, I don't know. I can still make it work. But that, for me, most of this speaks to me as a father watching my kids grow.
That's funny. As initially I read the first verse and I thought, oh, this totally sounds like your kid growing up faster than you expected or faster than you would hope. You always hear, me not being a parent, I always hear, oh, they grow up so fast, enjoy the time that you have with them while you can at, specific ages. Enjoy them being toddlers where they're so carefree for so long and elementary aged. And then when they're teenagers, oh, they're, they get emotional and hormonal and they're going through a bunch of changes, but cherish, every moment. I read the first verse and initially kind of thought of the child growing up too fast before a father's eyes. The rest of the song kind of tripped me away from that, and so I abandoned that. And Erick is obviously going to tell us if we're right or wrong, or he's not. He's going to leave it a mystery, and this is just going to be fun for him because he's a
so
sadist.
Erick.
Now that I revisit the bridge, though, it does kind of give me that. I think you might be on the right track there, Lance, with the father figure thing, because, or parenthood in general, where you're kind of passing along who you are as a person, who you and your partner are if you're raising them with a partner, who you are, but you may not know who you are. And, you're kind of just hoping you don't screw it up. I've got a very, very, very dear friend whose wife is expecting. They're doing about 2 months from now as of recording. And he's asking, like, am I going to be a good enough parent? Am I the right person to do this? Am I going to, I don't want to mess this child up. And I barely know who I am as a human being. I'm still finding myself. And I think that does kind of turn it towards your theory of, through the eyes of a parent watching your child grow up and growing with them. Even though you're an adult, you're still growing and learning as an adult. So I'm fully prepared to abandon my theories for the parent theory. I think you're on it. But
yeah,
Lance or Erick.
Well, and my favorite line on this actually is, I guess that's the chorus, "Turn around, my love, and for the first time, let me see you." Because as a parent, that's one of my favorite things that I swear it's just a random day in the week. And generally it's one of my girls. I just see him in a light where I'm like, oh my God, you just grew like a year in one night. and it's an admiration of you really holding yourself up, or just the way they look, or whatever. So I'm admiring them in a way that it's like I've missed something the past, while. So anyway, that's one of my favorite lines from the parent perspective, that is. All right, Eric.
Would you guys be shocked
No.
Not
to
even
find out that you were right?
Hey, which one?
Because you're not.
Not surprised at all.
Not even close. But I love both interpretations. I love it. Part of me does not want to screw with it now because they're so beautiful that I just love them.
It's about heroin, isn't it?
It's about Morgmans.
But Westies, we would be doing you a disservice if we didn't unleash these secrets upon you.
And that's the episode.
So what if I said the she in this song is not human?
Okay,
Pause
hang
for
on.
dramatic
Hang on.
effect.
Android lover.
No, that immediately takes me to Mother Earth, Mother Gaia, that sort of thing. Is this a global warming song?
Easy, Al Gore.
Middle Earth?
So, and that's the crux of the song. Now, on its surface, yeah, it's a love song. On its surface. Plain simple, dyed in the wool. But, and Lance can attest, I can't just do something simple. So the she in this song, and God, I've been waiting for this, and this is why I love this song so much. The she is death.
Okay.
So this is a very upbeat, beautiful song about death.
Makes sense.
Which is why it resonates so much. It's why this song means so much to me. We've talked, and I foreshadowed this in an earlier episode when I talked about my fascination with what is to come, with the afterlife, with that day after tomorrow, with what is next. And as an artist, I dive in to death quite a bit because it's a fascinating subject. It's in no way frightening to me. In many ways, it's beautiful. I'm not a goth kid, but I certainly resonate with this idea of, and I understand why people are drawn in to this idea about death. And I wanted to write a song about it without the song being about it. I'm happy to hear that I succeeded on that front because you guys get beautiful interpretations and they're not wrong. How many times have we said, once I write a song and throw it into the world, it no longer belongs to me? The thing about parenting, Lance, it's wonderful and it's totally there. Or a love song, whether it be unrequited or something near the end of life. And Bobby kind of skirted, some of the real, well, not the real meaning, some of my meaning there. We talked about like joining someone who's gone before. But so now when we look at the lyrics and we take into account that the she is not a woman, that is death. So it's a bittersweet reminder as she races by faster than she should, that I'm always chasing the one that I don't want to catch. So this is about mortality. So many artists write about mortality and about aging, and we are no longer, in our 20s or 30s. And where life gets faster, man. Life gets faster and we keep pushing along, but we're always chasing. Death is always in front of us. We don't know when we're going to catch it. That's not for us to decide. But we're always chasing that, but we don't necessarily want to, even though it is inevitable. And it leads us into that chorus. And the chorus kind of comes from my acceptance of death as not necessarily a bad thing. And that's why I refer to, quote, her as my love. Turn around, my love. And for the first time, because most of us, we only get to experience that once. And for the first time, let me see you. Hold my gaze until the river comes to take me home. Now, this is where Bobby was actually spot on. The river metaphor with death is from ancient mythology. It's from, the boatman coming and taking you from life into the afterlife. So, Bobby, good job. You nailed that one. So, hold my gaze until the river comes to take me home. And this is my favorite line of the whole song. And I'm afraid I'm not afraid. So, when people say like, well, I'm afraid, I don't care about that. You're saying, I'm afraid. I'm not afraid. The person, the protagonist, is not afraid of what's coming. I'm not afraid of giving myself to surrender and float along with you. That's about stepping onto that boat and taking that journey into the next step, whatever that may be. Then we come back to a verse, take all of my expectations of who I thought she was. We know who that she was now. Of who I thought she was, tempered by my fear of the unknown that everybody says they know because the Bible told them so. So we live in a culture, where certain slices of that culture think they have an ownership on death and on the afterlife. The reality is, no one who claims humanity can truly know what comes when we leave this mortal coil. At best, we can guess. And whether your descriptions come from religious texts or, I don't know, peyote dreams, or like Lance was referring to, a buttload of heroin, we don't know. So we don't know what happens next. But some people, take, their ideas of death from the Bible, which some may be true, some may be false. We don't know. But I do have faith that there is something beyond this. Just the way the universe is ordered and my belief system. And again, this is coming from me. This is not me saying this is how it is. But for me, there is something outside of this, because I see an artist's hand in creation. And again, that's my 2 cents. So it's that unknown, and it may be, as the Bible describes, though obviously not parts of it, because eternal conscious torment. I mean, come on. That's not going to play out with who the character of God is, so that's a whole nother podcast. So, but it's taking that next step into the afterlife. Now, here we get to the bridge, where it pokes holes in a lot of theories. And the bridge is, it's tangential, to say, yes, that was the word I was looking for. Thank you. So it's tangential to what I'm talking about, but it's, have I misunderstood or failed to mention I don't know who I am? It's a failing I'm familiar with, a thorn in my side that will never go away. All that is to say, in a very simple way, is while I am chasing after this thing that I also find beautiful but don't necessarily want to catch, I'm still not even convinced of all that. Maybe I'm also scared to death of it, that I don't know at my core who I am or how I feel about this inevitability that is coming my way. It's just a thrown-in statement of uncertainty, because that, exists in this whole journey towards our inevitable demise.
There's this whole thing about, a lot of people, I'd like to count myself amongst them, who have close experiences with death, whether that's a near-death experience himself or losing friends and family members, where, you'll kind of come to this, almost robotically logical acceptance. It's kind of a nihilism where you're like, yeah, I'm going to die someday, and you become okay with
They're
that.
They're nihilists, Donnie. They don't have an ethos.
Where you get this kind of nihilistic view of like, yeah, I'm going to die one of these days. And, you kind of have an acceptance of that. But at the same time, to be afraid of death is to be human. And the way you're describing the bridge nails that. That's all I got.
Well, and I wanted to add to that too, because this, obviously death is something that's like taxes, right? They always say death and taxes. It's real, and all of us are going to be facing this, and we can't ignore it. It's part of life. There's birth, hopefully there's love, there's generally some failures, and there's death. So it's great that we've shared this with everybody. I don't know anybody's going to think it when they actually read the lyrics, unless they hear this podcast.
I doubt they will. I mean, honestly, unless they listen to this, because it's one of those things that I didn't want to make it so obvious that with some certain clues you could figure it out. So the whole point is, if you listen to this podcast, you will figure it out. But I don't know if someone can read this and go to that place.
Right. I would agree. And now it also makes sense when you wrote this, because you were kind of coming at the tail end of losing a lot of loved ones in your family. And so obviously it was on your frontal lobe at the time. And it's cool that you were able to, through that heartbreak and loss, transform it into a song that is, hey guys, it's not necessarily something to be afraid of, but you do need to face it. You need to be realistic with yourself and think about what that means, and hopefully it makes an impact on you being a productive member of society. And again, nobody's going to know that, unless they listen to this, but it's cool that you did that, Eric, and in a very tasteful way.
Oh, thanks, man. And I think you're right. I think it comes on the steps of when COVID hit. I lost my brother-in-law. I lost my brother. I lost my mom just a few months before that. I lost my dog. We had a lot of death and loss in this family. And through all that, I realized something about myself is that I don't think I view death like, I'll say, the majority of people out there. And maybe it's because I don't have a fear of it. I have a fear of things hurting. Like if I were to be set on fire or something, that would suck. Or death by 1,000 dislocated shoulders. These are things that would worry me because I do, however, have a fear of that. But the actual death part, nothing. And I don't know if that's, I don't know if I'm naive or I just don't care and I'm soulless. But I just feel like this is such life, humanity and life. It's practice for whatever comes next, and so I just kind of view this life as practice where we have successes and we make mistakes and we learn from those and we move on to whatever's next. So I don't have that fear, I guess, that a lot of people have about, our impending mortal demise, simply because I have faith in something that comes next. And I don't think that's flying around on clouds and playing harps and a bunch of silliness, but I think we inevitably, the soul, the thing that makes us human, that gives us morality and intelligence, that will ascend to something different and something that will be way more awesome than this foolishness right now about figuring out whether or not I like In-N-Out better than Shake Shack. These are little things that don't really matter. I'm trying not to ramble at this point, and Lance really kind of nails it, that our experiences around death, we find out what we really think about it. There are people who are scared to death, no pun intended, of dying. And I get that, because the idea that we will cease to exist in a millisecond can be extremely frightening, unless you just feel like, hey, that may give you pause to do everything you feel like doing and making the world a better place in your time that you are here. And I think that is valuable as well, because that's what we should be doing. We're not put on this earth to waste time, to do nothing, to not love, to not experience things. Lance said it too. It's the failures and the successes and love and relationships. That's what makes us human. That's what makes us so amazing. It's what separates us from Bob the cheetah, who's just running along the Serengeti looking for the next wildebeest to eat. That is an existence, so to speak. But our existence is so much more. And it raises the question, let's go deep, Westies. We're going there. We're getting metaphysical. It raises the question, why? Why is our existence different than Bob the cheetah killing the wildebeest on the Serengeti? Is that an accident? Is that the outcome of evolution somehow? Or is there more to that? Now, it's put in a silly way, but it begs the question, and I think it has to make us think, why is that different? Why do we love? Why do we engage in relationship? Why do Lance and Bobby know that I, as a man, care about them and their well-being? Why do I invest in their lives, and vice versa? Why do we create art? Why do we share art with the world? Oh, it's all coming down right now. I didn't think I'd get on a rant on this one, but here we go. Let's dive in. What are your thoughts, people, when you sit down in the darkness of your room and you take stock of your life and you think about why we do things, what separates us from lower intelligence, and except for dogs who are, that's inarguably smarter than us. What separates us? Why? Why is the why behind that? Where do we go from there? That is the beauty of art. That's the central part of this song, is trying to figure that all out. Why on this journey towards inevitable demise do we find hope? Do we find solace? Do we find this is the next obvious step and I want to go there?
Yeah, I don't think the wildebeest thinks this is a silly topic. Just, one perspective.
As he's being ripped, torn flesh from bone.
But still breathing.
I mean, is the rant? I mean, is it? I don't know. I don't know if it's an innocuous rant, if it has some weight to it. But these are the things that, you know, especially as an artist, that I focus on almost to too strong of an extent, you know, to try to figure out where we're going with this.
So I study a lot of the Stoics and Stoic philosophy. I picked it up maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and the Stoics have a lot of beautiful nuggets of wisdom on sort of a preemptive acceptance of death, both your own and of those around you, you know, in dealing with grief. They were a source I turned to in dealing with deaths close to me in the last few years as well. I'll give you a couple quotes from, and I'm going to butcher the pronunciation. It's either Epictetus or Epictetus.
I'll believe you either way.
Either way. So Epictetus said once, "I cannot escape death, but I can at least escape the fear of it." You know, sort of like, you know, it's going to happen. And then Marcus Aurelius, once the most powerful man in the world, emperor of Rome.
I remember him from Gladiator.
Yeah. He said, let each thing you do, let each thing you would do, say, or intend be like that of a dying person. And then my favorite, this comes from a more recent Stoic, is "We're not here for a long time, we're here for a good time." That's from the great sage Huey Lewis of Huey Lewis and the News.
Who can argue with that?
I am firmly of the opinion that, you know, we don't know how long we have. We might as well make the most of it, whether that's, you know, going whole hog into just having a good time and making the most of your life and, you know, sort of this joie de vivre, or, you know, committing yourself to more what would be considered noble causes, you know, giving yourself to charities and good causes and trying to make the world a better place and leave it in a better state than you know, entered it in. So I'm fully of that opinion, and knowing what this song is about now, I am all for it. I still, like you said, it's released, and I like, you know, my interpretation and Lance's interpretation. So it's one of those songs that you can take multiple ways, and that's the mark of a good song, is that it can mean different things to different people.
For sure. And then Erick's specialty is giving mixed meanings, but yet don't discount anybody's actual belief in it. So, good job, Erick.
Thank you, man. I'm I guess the universalist of songwriters. You know. Let's go ahead and play The First Time.
It's a bittersweet reminder
All right, so there you go. I love it. It's a great song. Sturgill Simpson, I know you're listening. Please cover it. I'll give it to you for free. And I will accept the Grammy on your behalf.
And if Sturgill Simpson is listening to us, you should listen to us.
Yeah, I don't have any reason to say Sturgill Simpson is not listening to us. So therefore, there's no argument to the contrary. Closing thoughts, gentlemen, on the first time for the last time.
I'm excited for this song because you were playing it up ahead of this recording today, and I was
For months.
Yeah.
Months I have been saying you don't know what it means.
Yeah, and I was like, really? It's kind of straightforward. So it forced me to look at it a little deeper because I knew you had something up your sleeve. But it's happy for me to say that listening to your perspective on it, it's like I heard the song for the first time.
Well done. Well played, Lance.
Little bit of cheese there, but seriously, it's kind of neat, and that song will never be the same for me, which is a good thing too.
I mix the song. I've got, my claws in it as far as that's concerned. And, again, another great song on the album. I think every song on this, for various reasons each, they're just strong songs, and this one's no exception. One thing I did want to mention, just because it's, a fun thing for me, I adore songs that, maybe have kind of a happy, upbeat sound sonically, just instrumentally, and then have a very heavy, dark subject matter in their words. My favorite band to do that is Third Eye Blind. That's immediately who I went to. It's not a Third Eye Blind.
Jumper? Are we talking Jumper here?
Jumper, Semi-Charmed Kind of Life. How's it going to be? But yeah, Jumper is definitely like the quintessential sort of thing like that. But I love, songs that kind of play with that sort of expectation of, happy song and like depressing lyrics. And not to say that this is depressing, but it is a dark and heavy subject matter.
I like that too. I don't know why. It's just, I think back to like Pumped Up Kicks by Foster the People. That is just an upbeat, catchy song. And it's about a school shooter, blowing away his classmates. But you listen to that song, that's not the first thing that pops into your head. You're thinking, hey, catchy hook. But it's taking darkness and throwing it into songs that just scream positivity. There's something about dichotomies and stuff and contradictions. I love it. It's the foundation of my soul, those things. Word. So, the next episode, I don't even know where to begin about that.
What?
See that?
Bada bing.
This whole episode has been about puns.
Well, that was very apropos of you. So
yes.
Wow.
Oh man, we have gone full dad joke. Bobby's not even a dad, but he's got the jokes down. So, the penultimate song on the album, you can look that one up. Penultimate, it's a beautiful word.
Great word.
So many words. I got the biggest words. the penultimate song of the album is Where to Begin. This is another fun one. Lance still refers to the song as Spiders because that's how he knows it, and it's going to be good. The song's in 6, and that screams good time. So give a listen to that. We'll be talking about that next week. In the meantime, subscribe to our podcast so you get those nice notifications. Our podcasts are everywhere. They're on Spotify and Podbean and Apple Podcasts, and I don't know if they're on Pandora, but I've ceased my hate with Pandora because Pandora is streaming our album, where you can hear that on Pandora. You can hear it on Spotify, Apple Music. It's on Bandcamp at westofhouse.bandcamp.com. I'm not going to go into all the URLs for this. Look us up. Quit being freaking lazy, man. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Just type in West of House. We show up. And on youtube.com/C as in Cacodemon /West of House.
Or caulk.
Or caulk.
Here, hang on. I want to try something to get us into trouble. Alexa, play West of House. And now you're all listening to West of House. That's how we had it.
There you
That's
go.
how we do it.
I like what you did
Nice.
there. We should do that every episode just to screw with people.
Hey, Siri, play West of House.
So, hey, great conversation, guys. This was a fun one. It's just a joy to be with you on this. For us, it's a beautiful Saturday afternoon. The sun is shining. We've had a wonderful day. We hope you have enjoyed your time with us. and hope to see you next week for Where to Begin as we close out. Well, not close out completely, but we're getting to the end of season 2, and we're going to end with a bang. Good stuff all around. So anything else to say before we say, hey, kick rocks, we're out of here? Complete silence. Have a good one. Goodbye. A cavalcade of goo.
Cavalcade of.
Wow.
Title of my sex tape.
That's tasty.
Oh shit.
Oh,
Okay.
man.
Woo. Title of your sex tape. Okay. Bring it back together.